Welcome to another stream here at Lightningbot. I am back from a vacation with some issue with my forehead and some poor photography skills done. But we are back with this new stream. In this stream, we will be playing Keena, which I misspelled earlier today, so I had to change all the streams and the banner because noticed I had two E's and it was supposed to be one E. So I was like, oh no, someone's gonna burn me. I have to change. So we're gonna be playing. I will be playing. Hopefully good enough so it progresses quickly enough. But probably not. And then Nora and Sora will be, watching and critiquing and kind of giving their thoughts on guessing how things were done, and hopefully we'll notice when the light changes in cinematic, for example, because we did interview someone who did Kina. So there's an interview about that as well. So have a watch later on. So we're gonna get started with that, and then we'll see how it goes. And yeah, that's about it. So the screen should be up. I will share it in a few seconds, and hopefully it goes as planned. You can see my playtime. I haven't played too much, just a little bit to prepare a bit, but it didn't help whatsoever. Let's see, that's the gaming stream. We'll go play. I will be using a controller because I'm guessing it's easier. Don't know actually.
How do you say the name? I've been playing the game for like 15 hours and I still can't say her name. Is it Keena?
Keena, is it?
Keena?
Or
Okay. I have no idea. I really don't.
I would imagine. So I'm gonna just do a new game, I suppose, because you get the cutscene and everything. I think that would be good. It's only 4 hours. Let's make it easy so we can kind of not die too much. And
The game
all
is
that.
like weirdly hard for being what looks like a quote unquote like family game. I die a lot.
Did you play story mode?
No, I think I'm playing it in the middle one, Spirit Guide, like the normal. I think it's definitely like kind of soulsy for sure.
Well, I probably was playing the more difficult one originally.
I'm not good at it. It's fun though. Have you played it, Sorb? Are you muted?
He's trying to.
Headphones broken again.
his headphone is broken. He needs to. I guess he doesn't have spare headphones.
No, he's not a professional. Who did you interview for? Who worked on this?
I don't remember who it was, but I can look it up afterwards.
The game is like legitimately gorgeous.
Yes, it is a very well executed game, which, blue flames and glowing stick and.
I feel like I don't know if I'm wrong about this, but I feel like I heard that the studio that made this was an animation studio prior or something. Is that true?
What were you saying?
I thought I heard that the studio that made this was an animation studio before this game or something. I'm not like, I don't know if that's true or not. I thought I had read that somewhere. Like this was their first game or something. I don't know. I'm gonna look it up so I'm not just like spouting nonsense.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Sorab, you're muted at the moment. Like in the software, I can see the mute icon is on. So what I like with the lighting is, there's not a lot of pitch black going on in the dark environments. You can still see the details and everything.
Yeah, it feels like, assuming like you calibrate your screen right and everything, and then the gamma, it's like so good. Like they do dark so well. Like it just goes really close to like black, but it doesn't go totally black.
And then you have all this nitty-picky particle lighting is also pretty nice here.
I wasn't paying attention. Was this Unreal 4?
Yeah, I believe so.
I think it is. Yeah, I'm looking it up. This was like a PS5 launch, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably. I'm just trying to remember the controls here.
And you're on PC right now?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm playing it on PS5. Looks pretty comparable. Yeah, they do like indirect ambient lighting really nice.
I mean, my screen is fairly color calibrated, and these God rays are obviously a bit lower resolution even on ultra, but it's still very nicely done.
I mean, Unreal 4 especially really caps you. Like you don't have control really like over too much outside of how far it renders out volumetric fog.
Yeah.
So like I think it has 5 layers of slices in the lerp. So you get basically 5 images that get blended together in the depth buffer to create
Right.
the fog. And when the further you stretch those out, the further you push out the fog, volumetric fog rendering, the more it has to like interpolate. So it looks progressively worse. So looking this good is actually, they've done a really good job, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty well done, and I'm just trying to remember what I was supposed to do here.
Am I finally back?
Yeah, we hear
you
you
have to
now.
light
Or was
from
it
the
this one?
platform, I think. There you go. You have to hit all those like little light things.
We hear you now, Mr. Zorob.
Sorry for the technical difficulties.
It's very nice light here as well. It's kind of leading onto the characters, you know, with the gold ray and everything.
They do subtlety really well. They like blend really nicely from intense light to less intense light. I feel like a lot of games are very like harsh in the way the lighting blends and the light shaping. It's very like bright, dark. There isn't a lot of like in between.
The question is, can you spot the directional light changing direction?
I haven't been paying attention to it. I'm sure it's happening. Although
Are
I
the
wonder if
cinematics
they're.
one time too?
What's that?
Are the cinematics also real time? Everything's real time.
The cinematics, during the interview, they told me that they.
I mean, it looks like it because they'd have to have a like kind of a harsh cut to do a pre-rendered, totally pre-rendered in Unreal.
So they do change the light direction during cinematic. The example I got was when you meet the small people out in the garden area, you will see that they change the light direction a little bit. So unless you're paying attention, obviously you won't notice, which I guess is good lighting if you don't notice that it's happening.
I doubt they're changing the directional light direction. I'm guessing they're just doing like a different large spot that's simulating the directional light. Because if you change the directional light on the fly, it messes up a lot of stuff. And you have to hide it.
Man, trying to talk and focus is a completely different skill set.
They'd have to, like, if they change the directional light in a big hole or something, like, that would have to rebake everything.
Yeah,
They'd have
obviously,
to
I don't think
reload all the light
they.
maps and stuff. Like, I feel like it'd be easier to just do, because we did that in Star Wars, in Jedi. Like, we had our directors who wanted the actual directional light to change, and when we were outside, that meant we'd have to like unload and load all new volumetric light maps, all new static light maps, and we had to like hide that, and it was really hard to do. maybe they're doing it, but it seems like it would be easier to just add different, localized key lighting.
Yeah, I mean,
Could be wrong, but
I think they changed. I think one of the scenes anyway. I believe they changed the directional light, but
they've done it in the exterior at times. I've definitely seen that. They'll do it in like, what you do a lot is like you go through a cave or around something that works like a cave, some kind of hallway where you can block a lot of the changes,
yeah,
making it really visible, and then you change it in the in between.
Well, are they using the out-of-the-box GI system in this? It's like probes and light maps or something, or do they have their own stuff?
good question.
I mean, it
think
doesn't
it's-
look like anything you would have to make your own custom solution, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know how big the world was and how destructible things were diagonally.
It's not like open world. It's like a Metroidvania, basically.
Oh,
It's like very similar to like Jedi. Like it's like, you have like hub areas and branching paths and stuff. It's very
yeah.
Metroidvania. So they don't, and
I mean,
they have basically a fixed time of day.
that's
It's
probably wise for the first project, the game project, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's more straightforward, sort of, in some ways, and you also get to be more keyed into like how the quality of your rendering and your lighting and stuff. You get to do more of what you want because everything's kind of, for the most part, static.
See, they changed it a little bit here.
Change what?
The light's supposed to be only from the left side, but there are.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely gonna have key lighting that isn't like, it's gonna, like, just like in film and animation, you match. You light the characters kind of like somewhat independently from the environment to get exactly what you want. The shaders look really good too in this game, especially in the cinematics.
Someone is saying cinematics are pre-rendered in Keena, which makes sense that they're rendering it in.
Are they rendering it in Unreal and then outputting those into frames? Like,
Yeah, I mean you could pre-render inside the engine naturally.
because like it looks like Unreal rendering. Like it doesn't. It seems like it'd be hard to render that in a separate engine. And you can render it, like Unreal renders really nicely in like an offline renderer because you can just go crazy with like anti-aliasing and like resolution and up all all your shaders they're not limited to runtime performance and stuff, so you can kind of go
Well, like,
wild with it.
all of these are like very much doable with real time too, though. Like at least these ones that we're seeing. So
Yeah.
maybe they have like two tiers of cinematics, one pre-rendered and one like real time.
It definitely looks like, I feel like that last one looks more like pre-rendered. There's definitely tiers, it feels like, but
They're definitely
I mean,
adding
that's
more
one is their
lights,
depth of
right?
field is really clean. I think is in these kind of cutscenes. It looks much better than the real-time one, but I could be wrong.
So someone is saying Amber is a VFX that you can match renders in the offline work. I don't think it's hard for them.
Mm,
Oh yeah, Ember. Yeah.
makes sense.
Don't know how many. Now, here's the thing though. How many of them are actually done from one point of view and how many are done from their own work? The person I was talking to was doing it inside, as far as I know, inside Unreal, and they were adding additional spotlights when needed, and they would change the light. Like this cutscene specifically was what he was breaking down, and if you paid attention during the cutscene, you would have seen that even though the light's coming from the left side there in the cutscene, it's actually on the right side more. And the guy saying, notice the cinematics are at high frame rates compared to base game, and shadows are very soft, akin to ray tracing. Well, keep in mind I turned on DirectX 12 before the stream this time around as well. I played originally DirectX 11, I realized, and I turned on a couple of more advanced features.
Yeah, I
So
mean, regarding ray trace shadows, this if this is 4 too, it's not ray trace. And Unreal's ray trace shadows are very, very rough. It looks like CSM Cascade maps to me, but
I mean, it is because I did ask them as well during the interview, even in the world, like, are you adding extra light or this one direction light? What's your approach? And um, one of them was saying that, like on the trees and everything, there are, they're placing in extra spotlights when
oh,
needed and
totally. Yeah, I
cookies and
mean, there's
everything.
everything has its own like sub framing of lighting. There's no way that it's just one light. Nobody does that in a third person game. Like they're painting their environment, and that's why it's like gorgeous. Because like there'd be so much shadowing and like uninteresting lighting up in the trees. It's all just framed so well. I can definitely see that there's so much handcraftedness. It's beautiful.
I mean, this is obviously, I would imagine there's a extra cookie light or something to make some of these things. Eye of Scar is joining his chatting with us and joining in and saying it is possible that a lot of Unreal Engine rendered. As you go later in the game, you can see a mix of match of pre-render and VFX, and real-time ray tracing shadows are off and noisy. Unreal Engine acceleration structure are CPU based, which makes ray tracing in Unreal real slow, not good for real time. I know, Jeff, it's you. Um, they don't necessarily know it's you though. Jeff is one of
Yeah,
the.
I mean this we're using Unreal 5 all ray tracing on SOD3. This doesn't look like Unreal 5. So yeah, I totally agree. Like this is way too clean to be fully ray traced. Unless they have an amazing like custom built in-house.
Well, it's
Like these are
obviously everything can't be baked because there's moving objects and the.
right, but that's going to be a volumetric light map. So it's most likely a combo, right? Like things that are truly static are static light maps that are textures, and then the things that get animated and moved are getting pulled from the volumetric light map.
No Unreal Engine 5 games out yet. I think the Layers of Fear Unreal Engine 5 remake is the first one to come out. I don't
I
know if
think there
any.
are a couple fives, but they're not using Lumen and Nanite. They're basically using the old pipeline.
I guess Fortnite is technically the only one.
Yeah. I can't tell if it's the stream or it's your PC, but the stream, at least on my side, seems kind of like the frame rate seems lower. Are you seeing that, Amit, or is it just all the streaming stuff?
Um,
I'm just wondering if the PC version is not as robust.
I mean, the
in frame rate.
game's working fine.
Okay, that's probably just the stream on my side.
When you have blur on camera, it slows down the stream frame rate a bit.
Gotcha. Lumen and Nanite are not production ready. I have that conversation every single day at work.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
gave up on it 2 years ago. We didn't look back.
We are totally committed. We have to use it for what we're trying to do.
No, what, really?
Yep.
An open world game?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, I have my work cut out for me.
I was talking to a studio and they were also doing an open world game, and they were definitely committed in making sure Lumen's work, and they will spend a couple of years if it needed to be to make it work.
Yeah, we just like obviously I can't go into it, but like what we want to do has to have Lumen. There's no way
Yeah.
to do it without.
I mean, maybe 30 FPS is feasible. I don't know.
And we're targeting 60 too.
My target at 60. Okay.
It's very ambitious. Yeah. We can do it.
Yeah,
It's gonna be awesome. But
we like heavily, so we like light mapped we just light mapped, and then we're so like super specific with using shadow casters too, and then we struggle to hit 60.
Yep.
Like doing all that stuff.
Marco's asking, do you think more and more studios will start using Lumen Nano fully, or will it always be a mix?
I think later in time, when Unreal actually has a finished product, people will use it. But I don't think this generation. Um, a lot of people. It's I think maybe a few places might, big budget production stuff in AAA maybe, but it's a lot. It's very expensive even if you optimize things really cleanly, and it's really slow. I think we're gonna have to do some more to Nanite and Lumen to get it to hit our targets out of the box. No, it's not. It's not ready. It's a demo tool right now, for sure. Has a lot of rendering limitations too at the moment. Yeah, VSM for sure.
There's a lot of like a gotchas too, right? Like if you look
Yes.
at Fortnite, they're like, oh yeah, it's 60 FPS. They're using Nanite, they're using Lumen. But then like if you look at their like environment, like go to their one of their rooms which is destructible, you have like two floor lights and everything else is made up of like flat walls and not a lot of geometry. So the complexity itself is like so low. Um,
Yeah, vegetation, there's a lot of limitations on it too. The rendering wise, it treats all nanite meshes as basically solid opaque materials for light occlusion.
mm,
So all of your vegetation, it doesn't like translucent stuff doesn't actually transmit light. So when you have light going through trees, it treats it as a solid opaque object. So you don't get a lighter shadow and you don't get hue change in that light. So that's something I'm working on to figure out right now is like
yeah,
solving
State
that.
of
It's like,
Decay
'cause,
has a
yeah,
lot of
you're
vegetation.
in a forest and you have a lot of trees and stuff. You expect the lighting to be adjusted to be lighter and to have a value, a hue and value change basically. And it's just everything looks so dark in the forest. So
Yeah,
um,
lighting foliage has always been hard to, even traditional
yeah.
sense.
So yeah, it's interesting. And then there's actually quite, especially when you start adding vegetation, there's like this. We ran into this essentially like vert count thing, even with nanite, where it's like you run out of allocated space. So we're like trying to solve that too.
Yeah. Hmm.
And then like if you're VSM shadowing stuff too, you end up with another problem, a similar problem where it's like, we can't handle this. So we had to like kill all of the grass isn't actually shadowing. So I have to come up with a shader solution to kind of fake it.
About
So it's like
right.
there's really cool stuff about it, but then you have a lot of work to do to kind of counter all the things that don't quite work. It's great not having to bake stuff. Like that's really cool. But it sucks. Like a lot of the limitations when you start getting into the nitty gritty of like, okay, you're like, oh wow, that looks really cool, and can do stuff off the bat. But then you start digging into like, but now we need to like target making things look a specific way and a specific quality. You start having to build your own systems and stuff, which is obviously a big time labor sink. So it's like I think on using kind of an old method thing, or maybe stripping just parts of Lumen used for like if you can like break out reflections or something, that's a huge win. I know a lot of studios that when they're doing ray tracing or something, they're doing it on reflections because
Mm, yeah.
cube map stuff, pre-baked cube map stuff is a nightmare, especially if you're in like a metal environment. It's
Yeah.
not fun.
Yeah, the volumes and parallax systems they have is super basic. They have like one sphere and one like cube, I guess cuboid.
Yeah.
As like and like the cuboids they work okay, but then if you have harsh transitions between two of them, it's just like you see them through and it like never really parallaxes right with the sphere ones. It's like it's such a pain.
Yeah, and one thing we found out back when I worked on Jedi Fallen Order was specifically on Xbox One. I don't know. We have to. I still have to get into what's going on with Series S and X. But back on One, like Xbox had a really hard limit the hardware on basically reflection actors, so cube maps you could use in a scene. And we found that out pretty late in development, had to refactor all of the reflections in the game.
That was just the Xbox? Interesting.
It was, yeah, PlayStation had essentially, I think it was like unlimited, but obviously your frame's going to tank at a certain point.
Yeah, yeah.
But it wasn't, yeah, we were just, what was happening was we'd be going through the level and reflections would just disappear. So it was just, the Xbox was just basically automatically finding them and arbitrarily turning them off.
Calls it out.
And
That's so
yeah,
weird.
and we did, there was, it wouldn't let you like in any way specify in the hardware to like, you know, like have like a on off render distance or anything. So we just had to like remove a bunch and refactor everything. And then reflection actors are pretty expensive actually.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
basically a light. So you kind of have to treat them as a light. The other tricky thing is like we were using like, you know, in like cube rooms, you want to use a cube and to get like a, you know, a non-warped reflection, right? It's planar rather than like that spheroid that they blend everything. So we assumed that not only was it when you set the volume space on the cube that it would cut off at that distance, and it was like, oh yeah, it's rendering, it's cut off that distance. We found out that it still renders it as a sphere. It's actually just changing the like it internally in a cube, like the box cube map. It's still a sphere. It just changes how it renders it to look like a cube. So when they're actually have an invisible overlap that you can't see on the cube maps. So like the cost of it, you like have a little cube, but it's actually a sphere outside of that. It's just clipping where it renders to and remapping it to planar reflections.
So you're
So
still
they're actually
paying
more
for a
expensive
cost.
than they seem like. So we had to do a different debugger to show that as a sphere.
We have definitely had issues with reflections too. We still do. Like
Yeah.
we've been trying to like, create like what do you say, more on the fly shapes. I think just cube is like not enough, especially if you want to parallax it. So like,
Yeah.
basically take a room with like crazy shapes and like have it like sort of conform to the different faces, like have
Right.
multi-face. But it's been tricky. It's
Yep.
got definitely been tricky.
Where
But
is
they
the
do.
last person? Oh my god, someone look it up.
The one critique I have of this game so far, and it's a design thing, it's not a render thing. I wish they would actually help you more with where to go. I actually get lost a lot, and where it gives you like if you do that, I think it's left on the D-pad or whatever, it gives you like a overall like this is your focus, like your goal, but it's not like your current sub goal. So like if you're trying to unlock a door, it doesn't show you what you need to get to that door. It shows you like the next quest, which could be way, way down the line. Excuse me. So I get lost a lot.
I
Like
mean,
Amit is right now. Yeah.
yeah, the worst part, I played this part of the game before, and I can't remember where the little guy is.
You're supposed to find those tiny little
Yeah, I have to
black
find.
fluffy things.
Yeah, well, let's not be so poor black fluffy thing. They're supposed to be
Yeah,
like.
I'm reading the chat. I have Scar was saying where you can bake out Q maps of an area as a per Q map volume. I know way back when I worked on Forza, Sorab, you can tell me if you guys were still doing this, but we had a solution where we could very customly, we could actually assign what got attached to a given
Oh, I
QMAP.
forgot to click.
I don't know if you guys were still using that, but that was super helpful, and I've never got that anywhere else.
It was different because like I don't know if you sort of up to date with was it now like the new one, the motorsport or whatever. It's like the revision of
Yeah,
like the
yeah, I know
previous
you
one.
guys changed it a lot, so I'm
Yeah,
working
so
on
they
it.
have like time of day stuff now. There's like a whole 24-hour cycle. We barely had queue maps when I left, and I think like they
Yeah,
sort of implemented it just after I left. Like right now we have like we have queue maps. I think we can afford only like 10 of them per map.
Okay, yeah,
Like,
we had a like similar cap that was like way lower than we thought.
yeah. And then it renders like I think every side of the cube, like every frame. So for like 6 frames, it renders like one cube map. Uh,
Okay, so it's like a
something like
partial
that.
real-time update kind of.
Yeah, because like the time of day, like it still updates slowly, so you don't really need to
Yep,
update it every
yep,
frame.
exactly. That's what I was gonna do for SOD free on
Yeah.
some specific things I'm trying to build that tie into updating. Not have it update every frame, update it every like, yeah, you know. So a percentage or a fraction of the frame rate.
Yeah, in Hogwarts, what we did was we just had like it was similar to Horizon.
Yeah.
Um, we just had like I think 9 to 12 like versions of cube map, and you would just
Hmm.
blend between it.
Yep.
But then the challenge with that is like Hogwarts had like dynamic weather, right? So
Right.
you can't have 12 versions of every time of day because
Yeah,
then
it's
yeah,
like you just have way too many. Yep.
yeah. So I think like if I remember, like I think they would only bake everything except the sky. Then they
Mhm.
would capture the sky,
The
and
skylight's
then
its own the update,
yeah, and then
right? Yeah.
composite that into the final
Yeah.
reflection. So there was like I remember something like that was happening, but it was the reflections are really tricky. Amit, I was gonna say like I'm noticing that the foliage, especially the tiny foliage, are like really well earthed and grounded here. So like
Yes.
the small clovers, I bet they're using like maybe contact shadows or something. But like the grass,
Is
the
there
self
photo mode?
shadow, there is one more.
Should
Yeah,
take a look at them. Yeah, zoom in.
the grass looks very well self shadowed,
Yep.
which is really nice. I bet it's like
It looks like
some of
contact shadowing.
it could be, yeah. If you just like slowly move your camera, oh yeah, it is contact. You can see it. Towards the edge of your screen, you can see it fade in and out. That's how you know. No, like if you just move your camera, you see the edge of your screen, how the shadows are coming in and out,
Yep.
like very subtle. See that? Yeah, those are definitely contact shadows.
Yeah, I see the blending. Like bottom right of the screen, you can see it go from cascade to contact. Like see it get blurred, like soft and then hard.
Yeah, but I think they're also doing some like AO from bottom to top or like base color shift. You can see like the grass blades themselves have like a variation in texturing. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think like I mean, grass is like such a weirdly difficult thing to get to in games because it's so
So hard.
small. It
Yeah,
has so much geo.
I can
It's
see
like
on I can see on the left side that it's cutting off.
yeah. Those contact for sure.
I found like you kind of have to do some special shading on grass to like make it look good in a game. Otherwise, it's just like you have to like all of the like real time shadowing stuff. Like sometimes it helps and sometimes it just doesn't.
Yeah.
Especially at like again, especially in like Lumen, um, because you can't have it. It has to be a mesh, so you can't have alpha. So like then we end up with like all these other things that we have to like, deal with.
I
That's
thought
what
they
fed
said
into the
supporting
like
mask.
max mesh thing in the BSM shadow.
Do they support mask materials now? Isn't that like a 5.1 or 5.2 or something like that?
Sorry, I missed what the first part you said.
Uh, I thought they supported masked materials now, not geometry, like masked materials.
Like alpha mask
Yeah, like for mask,
or just
like
blending.
not translucency, just masked out.
For
Material.
nanite,
Yeah, wasn't that? Or was
I
that
might. I'm
lumen?
not 100% sure. We're like a half. We're like a 0.5 behind
Oh
the
yeah.
current release. So like we're like Unreal 1.5 kind of. We had to like we're like going slightly behind, but I'm
Okay.
not sure. I have to look into it. That'd be great if we can use alpha grass again.
I remember going through the change list somewhere. They're like, oh, we have new nanite foliage and trees now, and also lumen supports it, and something like that.
Yeah, I mean like it's nanite vegetation, but
Oh,
the nanite doesn't support like to do nanite it has to be all mesh.
Oh, so you're
So
seeing
like,
each leaf is like a
yeah, so
geometry?
each blade,
Oh,
each leaf is a mesh.
okay.
When you do an alpha, it doesn't work. It like treats it as one. It's like a square,
Mm,
right? It's like two triangles. It doesn't
I see.
see the alpha blend, and it doesn't nanite can't like blend that cleanly.
Yeah, yeah.
It's I think it's like it only works with meshes based on like the nanite scene. So it just doesn't know what to do with it. It treats it as solid. So if you do it, it's just all your trees shadow wise look like they're just like squares everywhere.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, this is definitely pre-rendered.
I mean, it still looks like Unreal pre-rendered, like especially the way they're doing like the effects of the growth. It definitely looks like how you do it in real time. It's just everything resolution, shading, aliasing, everything.
Feels like a workflow nightmare to have this offline, and every time something in the environment changes,
Yeah, you
this
don't want to do that. That would be
like
a
a tiny
nightmare.
grass placement changes. They're like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, let's export everything
And then
to
you got to match the rendering style and
yeah.
it would just different rendering in different engines and trying to match it is a nightmare.
Yeah. I did that for years in Forza. I know that pain. Yeah, so using Lumen, I've read that you guys have to sort of like change your workflow, like pipeline the way you like make geometry too. Like apparently it's very finicky if the dimensions and the size of geometry is like a specific thing. So do you guys have to like change your pipeline or even like workflow on how you make?
I haven't been checking in with especially the environment team too much. We have a lot of perf stuff we have to get back into. We're doing something a side thing right now. Um, and so we haven't been getting into perf too much lately, but I do know like one of the environment leads said he was running into like some weird constraints. There's definitely a lot of like construction things you have to do. Of like you build a piece, then you add. It's even more like um, there's like almost more kit bashy than ever. You build a lot of things even more modular
Yeah,
than you
that's what I've read. Yeah, yeah,
specifically like if we're not talking about the actual landscape mesh, like the unreal landscape, right? Like the terrain. If you're building like a mountain, you can't make a big mesh and just like put that in.
mm,
There is like a hard scale, I think is what you're getting at of like how big is an individual mesh? There absolutely is. So like I noticed like one of the environment artists was building mountains as just a big mountain and putting it in
yeah,
the
yeah.
background. And I'm like, no, we can't, that won't render correctly. And it doesn't even shadow if we do that. Like it causes, and then like the frame tanks. So we had to like break that down into like, yeah, like a given like scale mesh and then build that out of a ton of them. Everything is modular, which does create some interesting challenges. It makes like Houdini integration a lot easier though.
Interesting.
Um,
That seems like a pain to make a massive mountain into smaller chunks.
yeah. Again, it's like you kind of end up needing to use a procedural way to do it. So like leveraging Houdini to make the mountain is kind of
Yeah,
what we
yeah.
end up doing. Is like, we're not having an artist hand place that. We're having them build the chunk and then having Houdini build the mountain out of the chunks, kind of is
Right,
kind of a
right.
thing.
Yeah.
And then adding some meshes into those things by hand, that kind of makes sense. But a lot of our world is getting like kind of like how Horizon and a lot of Ubisoft stuff builds like there's um like a logic to how it gets built behind the scenes. I can't remember the system we're using for the environment team. Somebody else made it. It's not Epic. Because and I can't remember. I'm kicking myself now. I just haven't been working on the world like anything with like world placement or building stuff. It's all rendering stuff, but um it's called it's like Biome, I think is like what it's called. You can get it on the Unreal Store. I can't remember though what studio made it, and then we're building a system off of that. But you
Is
build
it
like
like
lots of
Gaia or something?
yeah, you basically fill like you create a biome and you fill it with like certain assets, and those assets have their own parameters. and then you can use biomes within biomes. So you can have like
That's cool,
sub biomes, and then that gets propagated out based on, certain parameters of how those individual biomes interact with each other too. And there's some like map stuff you can like have like a heat map basically too. You can manually input. It's still
Also,
pretty early in the
Dandelion
stage
flying
method.
out. Like, I just
I
saw
love their
Dandelion flying
their
around.
establishing shots are so gorgeous.
Yeah, that like I'm working a lot on the skybox and the current project, so
Yeah.
looking at these, like analyzing it, I'm like, yeah, probably a cube map out there baked into the world.
Yeah, the other challenging thing with like a fully open world real-time game is like you can't use any kind of like cloud cards or anything, so you have to like build the system to make the clouds, which is like its whole own thing, which I'm sure you've done on a lot of your side stuff. But
Yeah, are you guys using the volumetric clouds?
yep.
Yeah, out of the box, they look great, but they're hella expensive.
Yeah, we got it cheaper, or one of our senior engineers got it cheaper. And it seems viable. We have more work to do with our with what we're doing, but it's still like we have a lot of work to do to make it look aesthetically what we want, and to be able to like really get not a generic sky, but like
Yeah.
really target types of cloud types and stuff. I was doing that at Unity. I really actually like Unity's volumetric cloud system.
Don't think I've used that. No.
It's nice. They also have like a map system where you like basically you create the like character of a cloud's erosion, and you use a LUT to define like height, and then each like where things like propagation at height. So like it's a cloud like profile basically. So you have like at a certain height.
Oh,
So you have like the y-axis is height, and then
see,
you
see.
have like density on the x-axis, and then and then you can have gaps and stuff. So like you can kind of paint definitions of clouds and how they erode over certain altitudes and densities. And then you also have like a top-down map that is like propagation over a space.
That background must be fake, right? And then it loads in.
It's like a mix of 2D, 3D map painting, I think, for sure. Definitely the clouds too are definitely like cards and painting.
I mean, I feel like that's a skybox though. Like, it
Yeah,
can be
I would
hard.
definitely consider it
Yeah.
skybox. Yeah.
Because like if you look at anything, any element in that thing, it's completely static. Like the fog doesn't really move. The foliage is like has absolutely no movement. Uh, maybe the foliage has no movement in the foreground too. I don't know. I can't see.
The waterfalls also don't look like they're moving, but it's a little hard to tell with the resolution in our like substream that we see. So I can't really tell.
It's blurry.
But
I mean, I don't know, Amit, you can confirm. You think anything in the background is actually moving?
The sky's not moving.
the clouds aren't moving at all. Yeah.
The clouds not moving. The trees in the background is not moving, but they don't generally move in the foreground either. To be honest, they're static in the foreground as well.
Or the waterfall?
Where's the waterfall?
Oh, all the way
Up on the
down.
mountains. There's a
Over
few
there.
like waterfalls.
Up towards the top of the mountain.
Like
I mean,
middle top of the screen.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see any like texture animation on it. Yeah, it looks pretty static.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably different ways also one could do it. I think like, well, I would personally go through the cube map or like skybox approach, just bake it into the skybox, build it out in 3D and bake it in.
Yeah, you can definitely add a lot of like little touches. Like when I've done skybox stuff, like you render out things or you have them, a different resolution, and then you just add little animation pieces in the environment. But it's always a time thing, right? Like if you're a small team making a launch title like this, your priority isn't animating the distant stuff. It's getting this gameplay area to look gorgeous.
Definitely local post-process volume here.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks, Elliot. Appreciate the comment.
The other thing I really think they've done very well in this game is their color grades. They're not gamey. I know like there's like a tendency in our industry, I think, for color grade to be very intense and like somebody's just sliding color grade like sliders for hue and stuff, and they're often like very very rough. They're like the change is just very obvious, and I notice in this game they're very subtle and targeted. Like they'll slightly tint, shadowing at a certain range, or like the high end, or like it feels like they're targeting different luminances to do specific things. It feels very very cinematic, very not gamey, which is like a weird thing to say, but like I just feel like when you see a color grade done well, it's something I really appreciate.
It feels like it makes sense with the history of the studio, right? If they're a
Yeah,
VFX studio,
exactly.
this is their bread and butter sort of thing.
Yep. I think part of the reason I at least from my experience, like where color grading, like why one of the reasons why we suffer in the industry is part of it is we don't have an understanding of it. And I say we like broadly. But I think the other is just a time thing. It's not like I don't in a lot of the studios I work at, it's not they don't seem to prioritize it as a critical part of the actual, rendered image. It's just like an afterthought. Oh, let's just make it a little more orange or green or something, which is not a good way to approach color grading or to solve lighting problems, right? Like they'll be like, oh, like the shadows are too bright or dark. Let's just color grade them down, and that just creates so many cascading problems.
Yeah, and Unreal doesn't really have great operating suite or props.
We've everything I've worked on with Unreal, we've had to get engineering to support DaVinci LUTs.
Yeah, that's what we're doing
Um,
too.
Yep. Because it's just like I know, like I think part of the reason they just don't want to deal with like it's like, well, it's in our package. We can say, hey, we have color grading, which I think, for the average user, like I still feel like Unreal is really a tool, not necessarily, it's not ready for full productions. It's really great for smaller games, smaller teams, or personal project stuff, prototyping, things like that. You wouldn't want to have like most people should not be using DaVinci Resolve. It's pretty complicated, right? Um,
Yeah,
but when you need it, it's like, yeah, we really need it. Like that you need that to get that kind of look.
Another thing I noticed here is everything was dark and corrupted. As you clean out the lighting and everything changes pretty decent as well. I
They
think
do
that's
a really good job of when they use like a post-process effect, or, changing the fog, changing post-process, changing color grading to make the scene look like the lighting changed, when a lot of the bones of it underneath are probably haven't changed at all, right? They're not probably changing the light maps. They're not probably changing the actual like light contribution from real-time lights. They're doing a really good job of doing things to give it the appearance of change without doing something overly complex and complicated and difficult to mask, like changing actual lighting. They do a
yeah.
really good job of it.
Is the stream frozen for anyone else? Is it just me?
It's frozen for me.
it's working on my, and I'm watching as well as streaming.
Can anybody in the chat? Can you guys
But
see it
but
working
but
okay, or is it
but
frozen?
I do see a connection. I can see saying it's weak connection at the moment.
Okay,
It's
the
working
chat
on
can
the
see it.
stream.
Yeah, the stream can see it.
Okay, cool. I
It's
mean,
just
that's very important. So
yeah.
I'd rather have you guys be able to see than us. We can always just talk.
The going back to something you said about Unreal, Nora, I feel like Unreal packs like a lot of features, and they take those features to like 80 to 90%, leave it there, and then move on to the next one. So like it's filled with like so many features, but they're all like almost
Yeah.
complete, but not right there. That's basically my
It's kind
entire
of the
life.
nature of off the shelf engines though, right? I mean, we did
Yeah.
that at like Unity did that too when I worked at Unity. It's you because you're making a product that you're trying to draw people in to use it.
Yeah.
And so from a corporate standpoint, it's about showing like having new features rather than like refine the thing to make the perfect like actual tool. A lot of
Yeah,
times it
yeah,
becomes, and
absolutely.
so like you have this like kind of challenging balance of the business side of the company really just wants new stuff that looks flashy to draw in consumers, which I get from like a business sense, like you need that. That's kind of like how the company stays afloat. And then on the developer side, you're like constantly like, no, we need to slow down and make all these things work the way they're intended to and work together, which is always a challenge. But yeah, 100% agree. It's definitely a thing that kind of happens, which is kind of like the trade-off between an in-house engine and an off-the-shelf engine. When you have an in-house engine, like with Forza or when I worked at Insomniac, like it's a big, challenging thing to change anything.
Yeah,
You have a very specific targeted sort of direction you're headed. You want this your engine to do this kind of specific thing. And when you have to do something else, or you like decide like, oh no, we have, for whatever reason, we have to go in a different direction. It's kind of like well, this is a ship that is really hard to change.
yeah,
So you kind of
yeah.
have that trade-off of a lot of features or like very specific features. I know when I worked at Insomniac, I was on the VR team, and that engine was not designed for VR. It's designed for Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
all like very geared towards that. It's all like deferred rendering. It's all there's no light maps. There's no like texture light maps. They're all like third order spherical harmonics. So like polymetric light maps in Unreal. So like in a game of VR where you're like also first person and you're looking at like you're having to deal with that higher cost upfront of rendering, which was really hard. And then you can't bake in texture lighting. So you have all of your lights are real time if you have light. And then on top of that, your light shaping is really bad because you have, it's blending between the different spheres. And so your resolution is based on those spheres. So you get just like kind of like these broad palettes of lighting without being able to actually shape lights. So I had to come up with a lot of like novel solutions and tricks and stuff to make like, I would like, and because I couldn't afford like a ton of lights, I would make like emissive textures that would like be decals that look like lights. And I would like map those on the surfaces. Like, so like all of the distant lighting is not like a lot of lighting where it's like when there's a very defined light shape, it's actually like a combination of like volumetric light map with a light without shadowing, with like a, emissive decal. And then I'd have to like, because I'm using 3 different light sources, basically, you have to like, okay, I don't set the light this value. I set it to how much of the light value it should be. And it was nuts. But yeah, we can't, but the thing is like, we couldn't change our engine to do the VR stuff, because we have this big ship called Spider-Man and like Ratchet and Clank, and like those games are designed for that engine. So it's just like it's always a weird balance when you work in games to like, for the studio, like, do we make our own engine or do we use an off the shelf thing and then like add to it as we need? It's always it's interesting.
They asked me to help free a boy named Todd.
yeah. Game dev is all smoke screen, mirrors and smoke. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's what it is.
It's
Big
back. It's not
lies.
frozen.
I should probably turn on my local recording too, so we can upload without being frozen.
Oh, I mean, I don't know if this now someone else in the stream said you're frozen, so I don't know if they see the same thing we're seeing anymore.
My father was a
Wow. They can let us know
traditions are different,
if it's still
but
frozen or
how
not.
spirits pass from this life to the next.
Well, take note. Maybe I'll turn off my camera in the future.
I remember watching trailers for this game. I'm like, oh, it's a Pixar film. It has a game. I love it.
Yep. The only other game that I think like hits this particular style of stylization like to this bar is like the Ratchet and Clank series.
That's true. Yeah.
Like
But I feel
I
like the lighting is a little more grungy, I guess. At least the newer one.
The clouds and the air are moving.
Yeah, those look like material clouds. Those aren't volumetric.
Is there like time of day variations in this game? So like you load in and out like Spider-Man becomes nighttime, or is it always day?
Not that I've run into it. Seems like it's per area has its own lighting.
I
Mm.
mean,
There are definitely. It seems
it's
like there
only
are
the
areas where you
mask.
go through a cave and then you come out, and I think the overall like lighting scenarios kind of changed.
If I put on the mask, it becomes night or the spirit
The
realm.
spirit.
Oh,
Ooh. If I take it off, it's. I mean, obviously, it's just a post-process volume because you can.
They
you
do
can
a
do
good
this
job
on-
of it though, right? Like that's like what I was saying earlier. Like it's convincing. It doesn't look ham-fisted. They do it well.
Yeah, I mean, they have a decent camera system too for people to do their photos as well. So you could. It's like a couple of things you can do there, and then you have the filters.
Ooh.
Never said it was a good filters necessarily. You can expose it up. So you can kind of. The funny thing, if you do this, you can analyze the game a bit more when you're playing with exposure. You can move around a little bit. You can kind of
The
notice.
thing is, whenever there's an exposure thing in a camera, that's not real exposure. They're doing an exposure compensation, and they're
yeah,
just
it's like a
changing
EV
the camera.
bias.
They're not actually changing exposure in those types of things.
It's like you're just exposing a stop up or down or whatever you're going. That's basically what's happening.
And then I don't know. You got.
Amit, what you're making us look at this sideways.
Because we're about to end the stream and I don't want to open the gate for this particular stream. I'm keeping it for the opening for the next stream where we can open this gate and look if things changes or not. All right.
That's how I want to play this game now.
Yeah, you
Let's
totally
fun.
should. I think it's it was either really cheap or on PlayStation Plus now or something.
Oh, really? Like the base PlayStation Plus?
I think I can't remember, or it was on sale through it. It's really fun. It's a really chill game, and I hope more people play it because it's really nice. It's just a nice game.
Yeah, I mean it's a beautiful game really, and it's quite enjoyable because the way of it's been designed, the level and everything. It's a good way of looking at the lighting peacefully. There's not 100 enemies coming at you like you're trying to analyze other games that are well lit. They tend to be very action packed, so you don't really have time to look around. Oh, it's pretty
Unless you're in combat.
dead.
When it goes to a combat thing, good luck.
So
Yeah, it's a good game. Everyone should play it.
and in combat it's okay because in the combat it tends to be the corrupted version anyway, so it's not that you take it away that you can see the daytime, but it's interesting to see the transition
Yeah.
and how it changes over time or as you finish it, which I think that's pretty cool as well. So anyone watching, I can see there's a couple of you watching. Thanks, Alba. Leave a like, leave a comment if you want us to keep playing and talk about it. And if you have any ideas of other games you would like us to have in the background while we talk generally about lighting, but also specifically to the game we're playing, let us know. We'll try probably Keena a little bit more. Just to see if it changed. There are a couple of bigger, nicer environments up in the mountains, 1 hour, 2 hours in, which is nice to have a look at as well, because it kind of opens up the playing field a bit more than at the moment. At the moment, it's very closed. So as you walk around and you explore, it gets a bit bigger, and climbing mechanic and things like that. So we'll
We've done once we're done with Keena. See, I still can't get the name right. It'd be cool to do a very different game, sort of like style genre to contrast like the very tailored third-person action adventure where you can get exactly kind of what you want. To do something where like you're really like limited, kind of like an open world or even first-person shooters or something in like, like a competitive one, because you have different constraints, not only technically but design. You have to light and design differently than you would in a game like this. So yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be cool to get people's thoughts on a very different type of game we test out.
Yeah, I mean, one
So
of the comments is,
Oh, Prey 2017. That's a good one.
play an older game is one comment.
Yeah.
And just discuss the lighting how it's changed, which we kind of did indirectly, off topic here as well. But it will be interesting to have a specific visual example to refer to and discuss as well. Prey 2017. Yeah, I mean, I'm open for mostly. Just keep in mind, I have to buy all of this stuff. So, unless you're sponsoring the game or gifting me it,
Yeah, you're setting up a Patreon, right, to support what game we play.
So keep it within. I have a huge library, so some of the games we're playing is well, I already have them. God of War is something I have, and there's an interesting game which is completely different, which is probably is an action pack, so you can review it. Is the Sinking City? It's very dark. What's the game called? Noir type of. No, it's set in it's Call of
It's
Cthulhu, maybe.
Lovecraft. Yeah, it's like Cthulhu mythos.
Yeah, and then obviously we have Horizon Zero Dawn as well, which could be interesting as well to look at the style Keena has been done on, and Horizon Zero Dawn. Is it similar? Is it different enough? That could be interesting to review as well. I like PBR days and how the lighting was different back then. Okay, yeah, I mean, it's all good. And you could texture your own materials if you want to. You can paint them old-fashioned way. Why not? Go for it if you want to spend time doing that. No one's stopping you. But that's where pixel art game comes in, right? There is technically old school way of doing things as well, while still combining modern stuff.
Unless they're taking a 3D model, rasterizing each frame, and then bringing it back in.
Yes.
That's like a really cool technique people have been doing for a while. Dead Cells does that in a really good way.
So Dead Space, who's the one? Is it EA that has Dead Space?
Dead Space is EA, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the remake was it the same studio? I think it was a different studio.
No, because they closed down.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
They did.
Did they open up again though? Maybe they reopened again. I don't remember. There's been a
No,
lot
I think the remake was a different
weird,
one.
interesting stuff with.
Yeah.
I might have all of the Dead Space, well, at least the 3 first one on my Origin client, and I have a couple of. Well, I have all Ubisoft
Motive did it?
games.
Okay.
I have all Ubisoft games prior to 2019, because when you join Ubisoft, you get all the games for free.
Have you guys ever played Hellblade?
I
Yes.
played through probably
It's a very
half the
short
first
game.
one, really good,
Yeah.
and then I got really stuck. And I was in the middle of crunch, so I haven't gone back to it.
Yeah, I thought that was a very
That's a
underrated
great
game
game.
that had
Yeah.
like really good lighting movements. So, yeah.
We can have a. So what we're gonna try and do, with everyone's help, if we play a game, we'll try and invite someone who has also worked on it, so they can also sit with us and talk about it.
That's always really fun to do. It's fun to talk about like all the challenges you have working on a game.
Yeah,
and
we
how you
might do
solve
it.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, the only problem is, half of the time it's a permission, and then you have to talk to the studio manager, and there's a lot of work sometimes when you ask people for certain things on bigger studios. They are unfortunately controlled a lot in bigger studios. That the studios you haven't seen on my stream here in our stream is because they didn't allow their employees to come on stream. So there are a couple of studios who are strict.
That's really interesting because like people share portfolio work. I've never heard like.
Yeah,
you can't talk about like what you did on the game.
If you want them to come, you either have to only stick to the questions ahead of time. So you have to write them the questions. They have to look at all the questions, and you cannot go away from the questions. And I don't really do that kind of format anymore because it's boring.
You're very official. You're very upstanding guy. You do it all like ask the company.
Yeah, and then And some people you have to do record it. You can't do it live stream because they're concerned about the questions that might come up or if something needs to be edited. I had one interview I did like in the beginning, and the company contacted me, said you had interviewed one of employees. I would like you to remove.
Oh my god.
And then I said I'm not. Then I told them, I'm not removing it. What you gonna do? And then they said, well, we need you to remove the 2 minutes. I said, sure, you can remove it. I sent them the file and had them remove the 2 minutes. And then I sent the video back and I uploaded it back. And the guy did that too. And I did the same thing with one of the person edited for me, the interview guy. I said,
Oh my God.
if you want the video, you need to edit your own clip, man. And he was
And
kind
like
enough
you
to
weren't
do
even
it.
like, I assume you weren't even like disparaging or anything. You're just like talking about how you made a game.
Yeah, it's just
Like,
like
that's not
talking.
even.
It's not even technology talk because I avoid
Yeah, it's
technology
like
talk.
that's not even like, that's not hurting their company. That's only helping.
And I
people
Yeah.
also,
understand.
Most of the big companies, man.
Yeah, it's weird.
I also don't mention the company name. Like in the beginning, if you watch earlier streams, which most of them have been updated since then, you'll see the company and the person's name. Now I just have the person's name because they're less likely to find the video. They're also less likely to comment about the video.
We are in a dark time.
And
Yeah,
I'll say when like studios don't let you like moonlight, like do your own side project, it's like it's so detrimental to a dev and like to themselves. It's like, oh, we don't want you to grow outside working hours. Good luck.
Well, usually if you say you had an IP or something you were already working on when you start, they can't do anything about that legally. There's always like a, do you have inventions of your own that you had prior to working on the
and the
studio?
answer should
You
always be
did.
yes.
Yes, you did. And you come up with a lot of things you're working on because you're working on a ton of things.
And
So, yeah.
the one company I interviewed, they asked me, they said either you have to stop lighting bot, or you can keep it to 8 hours a month. I said no, no way.
We don't want you to have another income so that you don't feel completely reliant on us. But
Yes, I said no.
unless this is turning into a leftist podcast, which I'd be happy to do. You should probably cut me off. And
Well, I'm neither leftist, middle, or rightist. I didn't even know the difference between these things.
All right, I really gotta go.
Yeah, I gotta go too. We have
Yeah. We already
Anyway,
8 minutes
okay.
over the stream. All right, thank you everyone for
Thanks,
watching.
everybody.
Like, subscribe, leave some comment, give us some more suggestions in the comment field, and we'll see you soon. And next week there's portfolio reviews, so stop by Discord. Me and Deco, no, the Dynasty Empire, will be doing it together, so have a look at that as well. Thank you for watching. Have a good day, good weekend. Toodles,
everybody.
au revoir, adios, kudafis.